Think about a rumor you once believed, something everyone repeated, something that felt true. Then, one day, you found out it wasn't. Hold that feeling. You're going to need it, because there's a story about ancient Rome that almost everyone believes. A story about an emperor and his horse, and the horse almost became one of the most powerful men in the empire. Here's the mystery. Did that actually happen? Let's not start where you'd expect. Let's start with a silence. A historian named Josephus wrote about the emperor Caligula in detail: cruelty, paranoia, executions. He wrote only decades after Caligula died, closer to the truth than almost anyone, and in all of it, he never mentions a horse, not once. Strange, right? If a horse really became a politician, wouldn't that be the first thing you'd write down? Keep that silence in your mind. It's a clue. Now go somewhere else, somewhere unexpected. A stable, marble floors, an ivory feeding trough, jeweled collars, purple blankets fit for a king. This horse had servants, just for him. Dinner guests were invited just to watch him eat. This part isn't rumor, it's recorded fact. His name was Incitatus, and he belonged to Caligula. So the luxury is real. But the politics, that's where things get complicated, because the consul story doesn't come from someone who watched it happen. It comes from a writer named Suetonius, writing decades later. And even he doesn't say it happened. He says people whispered that it might. A rumor, passed down, not confirmed. Then, 200 years after Caligula died, another writer picks up the story, Cassius Dio. And he doesn't whisper, he states it as fact. Caligula promised to make the horse consul, he says, a real political appointment. 200 years later, think about that gap. No newspapers, no records to check, just stories retold generation after generation. Now ask yourself something. What happens to a rumor after 2 centuries of retelling? It doesn't get smaller, it gets bigger. So here's the real puzzle. 3 writers, 3 different versions. One says nothing, one says maybe, one says definitely. Which one do you believe? Before you answer, go back to the beginning of Caligula's reign, because the horse isn't actually the starting point of this mystery. The Senate is. When Caligula first became emperor, people loved him. Then he fell seriously ill. He came back changed. He began humiliating senators in public, forcing them into absurd, degrading commands. Men who once ruled provinces now groveling before one man. Caligula wanted them to feel something specific, worthless, powerless, replaceable. Now put that piece next to the horse. A horse with jewels, a horse with servants, a horse living better than most senators. Does that feel like an accident? Historians don't think so. The leading theory isn't that Caligula wanted a horse to govern Rome. It's that he looked at his own Senate, men bought and sold and terrified, and said something like, "My horse would make a better consul than any of you." Not madness, a public insult, aimed precisely, a joke with a blade hidden inside it. And after Caligula was assassinated, his enemies needed a reason to justify killing an emperor. An insane emperor is a good reason. A joke, retold as literal fact, made him look insane. So it spread and spread. And 200 years later, a historian wrote it down as truth. So here's your answer. No records, no decree, no horse ever sat in the Roman Senate. But a warning was delivered, and it worked so well, it outlived the empire itself. So the next time you hear a rumor repeated so many times it starts to sound like fact, remember the horse that was never a politician and the joke that became history.